It's no secret to anyone that attempting to enjoy things reserved for the younger demographic after reaching maturity often results in judgment. No, no, that's not what I meant. I meant this. Now we're talking. It's one of the main deterrents in the way of enjoying good media, and one that almost prevented me from experiencing the masterpiece that is Ahead in Time from 2017 by Gears for Breakfast. Plot is as simple and straightforward as you can expect. AHiT, our protagonist, crashes her ship on a nearby planet while flying back to her home, and the crash also scatters her fuel, the timepieces, which she must collect to return. Along the way, AHiT meets Godfather of the Mafia, Clint Eastwood and Michael Jackson as directors, and finally, everyone's favorite, Noodle Ghost. Gameplay is designed in such a clever but simple way that the player never stays still or would really want to. As a result, the player is constantly invested and immersed, and more on immersion later. From the first few shots of this game, your main thought could be, this is definitely a game for children. In a certain sense, you'd be correct. In the same sense that the colorful and bright Splatoon is a game for children, largely enjoyed by an adult audience, and Call of Duty being the cool and tough guy military shooter it is, having an audience of basically children. Go figure. To understand why it looks like a kid's game, we also need to understand how Ahead in Time came to be, and for that we must make a short excursus into the recent past. First, the term itself. The collectathon genre, a mix of the words collect and the thon for marathon, is centered around exploration, platforming, and when you know it, collecting various things. The end goal of these games is collecting a certain key item every stage, as the games progressed each time this was done. Above all, collectathons are platformers, and as a result, their gameplay is very bouncy and dynamic. Second, let's look at the year the genre came to be. 1996 was a rather turbulent time. The Cold War had basically just ended, and 4 years remained until a new millennium. This exact year marks the creation of the Nintendo 64, a pioneer of widely available three-dimensional video games, and a kickstarter of mass competition on the market. A launch title of said Nintendo 64 was Super Mario 64, the first game to really demonstrate the extensive capabilities of a 64-bit console, and the first game to set the 3D platformer and collectathon genre in stone. Dozens of great games following the same formula instilled by Super Mario 64 followed, almost all of them released on Nintendo 64 or GameCube. Banjo-Kazooie, Donkey Kong 64, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Super Mario Sunshine. Put simply, a lot of games wanted the piece of the pie. Even PlayStation 1 had its own share of such games, the Crash Bandicoot series being among them. It goes without saying that the collectathon genre experienced its platinum age in the late 90s to early 2000s. Being the new hot thing these games were, they often ended up as birthday or holiday presents for plenty of children back in the late 90s, many of which grew up with the turn of the millennium and came to see the massive changes in the gaming industry that followed. As these people grew up, the collectathon genre itself grew to become a distant memory. Similar games followed, of course, sometimes in the same franchise, but none could meet the acclaim and renown the games of the past had. I myself never really got to see the rise and fall of collectathons for myself, being born around the time they disappeared into obscurity. I instead grew up in the era when FPSs were the new hot thing, and even got to play the very first installment of Call of Duty. When Call of Duty was new, remember that? I digress. The point is, I never got to experience collectathon platformers as the genre had faded into obscurity by then, and no games of such genre were released on the contemporary consoles. Because of certain circumstances, I had to step away from console gaming for a bit, which did allow me to explore the indie market on PC. By that point, I'd heard of this Ahead in Time game, I had once seen a small tidbit of alpha footage, and I had a fair understanding of what the collectathon genre was. I become friends on Steam with a certain someone who I've met through a Discord D&D server, and I ask, hey, do I think I should get this game? Definitely, he replied. Steam Weather Sale rolls around, and I use my very first opportunity to buy the game. Given the fact it looks a lot like a game for children, the only opportunity I had to play was either in the dead of night or in places no one was looking. Some people try to hide when they play specific visual novels and the like. I instead hid because I was playing a game for kids. And honestly, I would be lying if I didn't say it felt awkward for the first few times I played, always looking to my sides to make sure no one was watching. In an empty room, when everyone was sleeping. Even then, when the fear of being spotted wore off, I realized no one was watching and I could just play the game as I wanted to. Just me in the game and the vibrant world it presented. No negativity, no one to judge, no one to compete with. As said in the very beginning, trying to enjoy media for the younger demographic often results in judgment from one's peers. AHiT in Time mitigates this directly by being an experience solely reserved for you, the player. It's one of the best things about AHiT in Time. It's an experience made for the player. Watching something like Samurai Jack or Foster's Home of Imaginary Friends, shows my childhood by the way, may be entertaining, but it's never something you directly interact with or something that can, honestly, immerse you. But playing something like AHiT in Time surpasses both of these constrictions. You feel the flow of gameplay, you feel every movement you make. All of it is for you, so the player is constantly immersed in the experience. Immersion and its brother, escapism, are wonderful things. They let you dive deep into a different world for a while, helping you recharge or get your thoughts together and emerge into the real world, I repeat myself, recharged, and oftentimes media such as games often offer the best type of escapism. In the case of AHiT in Time, it allows escapism back into a different, bygone time. A time that's really long behind you, one that you can never return to but can sometimes experience again, at least momentarily. Your childhood. The bright and vibrant palette of matte colors, the upbeat and lively soundtrack, the bouncy dynamic gameplay, all of it brings the player back into a more peaceful and carefree time, or give them peace and tranquility when they need it now. And if you ask me, an experience like that is something all of us definitely need right now. It's an experience I definitely needed. Something simple, bright, and just happy. So yeah, Kids Game was what I needed in my life, as funny as that may sound. It's one of the games that, I can say this without lying, changed my life. When I bought AHiT in Time, it had been exactly 1 month since I had lost my house in a fire. It took a short circuit and then around 6 to 7 minutes for almost everything in sight to burn down. We lost everything save for our lives on my phone, and somehow we all managed to remain relatively unscathed, but fact remained fact. We had no home, we had no documents, we had nothing left. Old family friends instantly came to us and helped us get back on our feet, thankfully, so we weren't alone in this. An old family friend at whose house I was staying got me a new laptop because at the time I needed to keep studying. I moved back to where my parents were staying after a few days, but everything felt gray, lifeless. I felt barely anything from seeing them again because everything inside was still empty. I simply switched off and existed. But then, this game comes into my life exactly a month after everything happened. Every night, as said before, I'd sit somewhere where no one could see me and just immerse myself in the game and the world it contained, and it really helped. In an entire month, it had been the first time I felt something. It had been the first time I felt free, alive, simply happy. It's a game that quite literally made me feel joy again. It was such a pure experience, completely distance from all the terrible stuff that happened last year that I couldn't help but feel positive every time I played it. It's a game where literally nothing can be bad, even though none of the characters are entirely positive, Snatcher being an eldritch false ghost that steals people's souls for ransom, the bird directors being vain and narcissistic, and the Mafia being the ones responsible for everything that happens. All of them are just so lovable and memorable that you can't make yourself hate them. It's a game that brings you in a better place and helps you re-emerge into the real world feeling at least slightly better and forget all the bad things in it, at least for the time you play it. It's a game where the entire world consists of bright matte colors, and even your spaceship is more reminiscent of a playground rather than something advanced. It really looks like a world imagined by a young child, which would make sense since AHiT is, well, a kid. Many people scoff at the idea that video games can be anything more than mindless entertainment, but games, being an art form, can carry emotions, feelings, and much more, and in the case of AHiT in Time, it's pure sublimated joy and nostalgia and a reminder of simpler times. It's a reminder not only for lovers of the bygone collectathon genre and the 90s kids, but also simply all of us. That's certainly reflected in the protagonist, AHiT Kid, who, by law of child protagonists, instantly makes the player care for her. She's, put simply, an adorable character, maybe the cutest one in recent years. She's really something many of us would want to be, completely carefree and always positive. It's the same kind of thing with Nico from One Shot. You inevitably get attached to them or even feel a sort of responsibility for them. If I were completely pretentious, I'd call it a kind of parental bond. Whatever the case may be, we inevitably get attached to her and her struggle to get back home, and it makes it all the more sad when we have to say goodbye to her in the end. Even all the characters we've met so far ask her to stay, even ones that supposedly hated her and wished her death, but nevertheless, AHiT has her own life and home, but she herself has difficulty forcing herself to go on. It's the thing with human beings. We always try to hang on to things that make us feel better and never want to let go of them. But these things inevitably go away, as is the case with everything. We try hanging on harder, but it inevitably slips through our fingers and has to disappear. That's exactly why all the characters wanted her to stay. She was finally something positive in their lives, and the same could be said about me. Back then, on the 5th of December, just as I finished the game, this game and AHiT were those very things I wanted to hang on to. And I'll be honest, seeing the end screen and hearing the music in the background made me cry a lot, and it still makes me cry. I felt so much, and I really didn't understand what I was feeling. I forgot this feeling, and I understood that I was happy. I was happy to be able to feel this happiness. Happy that, as bad as things were, they weren't worse. Simply happy to be alive. I finally felt something good in so long. And I realized, maybe you don't necessarily have to let the things that make you feel better go. Of course, you do, but maybe just remembering what said things mean to you and moving on with your life is the best thing you can do in this case. Beyond the game, life still went on. I had to as well. But if I reminded myself of that short, fleeting moment of joy I had then, after an entire month of nothing, then maybe it's not all bad. AHiT in Time is, without a doubt, one of the most influential games in my life. Although it's as simple as a retro revival collectathon, it's a game that made me realize that I could still be happy. That I could live and not exist. And that those short fleeting moments of joy that follow after so much pain and misery are the stuff to live for. And for that, Gears for Breakfast, thank you. Thank you so much.